And we're here at the International Energy Forum, and joining me now is Helima Croft with RBC Capital Markets. Thank you so much, Helima, for taking the time.
Having me.
And again, welcome back here. 10 years the symposium has been going on, so it's great to have you join us. You've been coming over the years. Talk to me how you've seen this evolve and how the dialogue has actually expanded and grown more in value as well.
I mean, it's such an important dialogue. We're having producers and consumers, the key energy market participants, really trying to get to the heart of the matter in terms of, for example, what's the investment outlook going to look like for oil and gas, for renewables? What are our projections on demand? All the different forecasts out there, trying to figure out how do these countries meet the different challenges posed by different forecasts.
Now, of course, the different forecasts, often they don't agree. They're not meant to agree. This is not what it's about. But this dialogue also facilitates that conversation around how they reach different, the output that they actually get. And the conversation really is who does what and what are the measurements and all of that. That's also important.
It's incredibly important because incredibly important decisions have to be made by producing countries about sort of what is the outlook going to be for the products that they produce. And so I think it's really important to have everybody in the room, people from the financial market saying what is the investment outlook going to look like, people from other national oil companies basically talking about what they're seeing in their forecast. So you're really bringing together divergent views and everyone's trying to work towards really trying to get a sense of if we have competing forecasts, what does it mean in terms of policy responses and investment dollars?
Now, of course, you're right at the forefront of, Wall Street, and you're talking to the big players and you're talking to investors and stuff. For you, how important is it that you take time to actually read all of these outlooks as well and people like yourself?
No, I think it's incredibly important, but I do think it's important. You can read something on the page. I think it's important to sit in the room and listen to the people who make the forecast and understand what were their core assumptions, how they came to this approach, what are their sort of competing challenges when they come up with a forecast. So I think it's really important to read it, but also the opportunity to get in the room and hear what the challenges were in coming up with that forecast.
Now, I know here at this symposium, His Highness the energy minister from Saudi Arabia was here, and many of you had a closed door meeting with him too. Now, I know you're not going to disclose what went on there, but just give us a feel for, how he's approaching you all and, the sort of, I suppose, the openness and the dialogue directly with him.
I mean, I find him remarkably candid, and I think about him as somebody who, at the same time, is actually quite humble in these settings and very understands the enormous weight of responsibility that he bears. And so I find it always, very remarkable to be in a setting with him. And he brings 30 plus years of experience in this industry. He's been through cycles. And so when he says that something is a challenge or they're trying to think about how to address a certain issue, we also step back and say, wow, this is an individual who kind of has seen it all in the markets. And I think that's a really important perspective. So we always feel incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity to sit with him because, again, he really is the dean of the market.
And of course, he was very much at the forefront and at the foundation of the International Energy Forum. We go back 20 years, and also indeed at the dialogue. So for him, I guess this is the 20th anniversary of the foundation of the IEF, then the 10th. Yes, please.
Such enormous pride in this organization. I mean, I think that is what's also sort of humbling to be in a room with him, to listen to how he views this organization as so essential. And I thought it was something that really came across in his remarks. It's just how important this organization is, how important this dialogue is, and how important it is for him to have this information to get his job right.
Now, the dialogue, I'm sure, over the years has changed, and we're really focusing a lot more on sustainability, on the energy transition. And, as everybody, as you say, bringing those years of experience together, that can really be part of the solution. But that energy transition there's not a date on it. I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainties. Talk to me about that.
I mean, one of the key things that I found remarkable was one of the speakers was talking about, for example, EVs, electric vehicles, what's the uptake going to be? And he said, look, we need to think about what are the critical minerals that are going to be required to really reach these EV targets. So in some respects, there was a lot of granularity in the discussion about what's actually going to be really needed as part of the transition. And then the type of investment that's going to be required for these goals to be reached. I think that was a very sober analysis that we had behind closed doors.
And of course, we look here at the first quarter of 2020, and there's always been, recently, the last few weeks, the last few months, we knew there's a bit of an oversupply in the market here. When we look at how everybody approaches this market for the year to come, there's a few challenges ahead, but I think hopefully they're up to the job.
I think they're up to the job. But again, I always am so impressed by the enormous weight of responsibility they feel in terms of getting this right, and how they have to be, I would say, very good risk managers in dealing with a very uncertain environment. If you think back to December, Etna, when we were in Vienna, no one could have foreseen the coronavirus story. We were just coming out of the trade war concerns. We thought we had basically parked those trade war fears on the side. Now we have the coronavirus. And then we have a story that's not probably getting enough attention, the ongoing Libyan outage. I mean, we have 1 million barrels of Libyan production off the market. So all of these variables that these ministers have to deal with when they try to reach consensus. I mean, the enormous challenge of reaching a consensus with imperfect information. That was one of my big takeaways from today.
Now, talk to me about the future of the International Energy Forum, and where do you see it in terms of, being the organization for producers, for consumers, for all sorts of organizations, and perhaps, more voices to come together to actually, make sure that we're all on the right road as we challenge and we sort of look ahead to the transition that's about to happen?
No, I think it's enormously important. I think it's convening authority is only going to grow. I mean, Dr. Sun has done an amazing job with this organization. We have a new Secretary General coming in. The United States will have the Secretary General. I think it'll be very important to have more of a voice of Washington in these meetings as well. So I think its importance is only going to grow as a convening organization.